Welcome to the PokerRoad Radio Show, hosted by Gavin Smith, Joe Seabach, and Bart Hansen. The PokerRoad Radio Show is the only poker radio show that's hosted by guys who actually make their living playing poker.
And Bart.
And we are here on day 1B. Thanks a lot, Gavin. Day 1B of the North American Poker Championship from Falls View Casino, Niagara Falls, Ontario. And, of course, we were here, Barry Greenstein and Gavin Smith. So, day 1A, Jonathan Little was the chip count leader. You guys are both
sick
still
is
in.
that day?
164,000 for Jonathan Little. You guys are both still in.
Well, if you
didn't bust.
If you flop bottom set, then you get in against a bigger set and aces, and you hit your one-outer, you become chip leader.
But he's got like 60,000 more than anybody else, doesn't he?
And we get 136,000 for the second place guy. So now, Barry, you're actually in 12th spot here with 76,000. You were doing pretty well when we came in for the dinner break yesterday. Did you kind of shoot up after the dinner break, or was it just kind of a steady thing?
Mostly steady.
Yeah.
I lost one race at the end, which would have gotten me to 100, which would have been good chips.
Trade you.
Yeah. No, I'm where I usually do pretty well on the first day, frankly. I have that prop bet against Justin Bonomo and Sorrel Mizzi, and of all the encounters over, let's say we've played 5 or 6 tournaments one time against Brian Townsend, I'm always free rolling on them. One time Justin outlasted me by 20 minutes. Outside of that, every bet I've made, I've had a free roll.
And that's the online versus live player tournament bet, right? Gavin, I saw you in the bathroom at about 11:55 last night. You said I'm down to 5,000. I just wrote you off, but you're actually still in.
Yeah, actually, from that point, I got down to 3,000, and I just, Barry and I at times have made a few cross books. The first one we made, I believe, at Harris Rincon, and we were both super short, and so we made this cross book of about, I think we were betting 10% of the prize pool or whatever, of whatever you'd cash for, and so after I made that bet, I kind of had to bear down and do it, and all of a sudden I figured out from that tournament that, well, maybe I'm not like the worst short stack player in the world, because I used to be the worst ever. I just fired in, just didn't give a crap. But so then after that one, I started actually learning how to play it a bit, and I'm actually getting pretty decent at it. But so I played pretty tough, and I worked it up to 24,000. And then came the nice last hand of the night, which wasn't even supposed to happen because we were supposed to, apparently, and the mics were really bad in there. You couldn't, where my table was situated, you could never hear any announcements. So I had no idea we were finishing with half hour left.
You didn't even know it was like the last hand.
I didn't. I thought we were playing another 30 minutes. But even without that, it was supposed to be done before my hand ever started. And on my last hand of the night, I ended up losing $10,000 in chips. And then all of a sudden he said, "Okay, we're done for the night." And I was pretty hot about that. So I kind of.
Then he started whining like a little bitch at the tournament director about how things were unfair. If you'd won that hand, would you have been doing all that whining?
I still would have said it's wrong to stop it. I don't see I don't really see what the purpose was of stopping it in mid-level. We only lost an extra 10 people. We could have either. It didn't matter to me if we stopped after 6 levels or if we played a full 7 levels. I just didn't think there was any purpose to playing a portion of the level.
It's a time thing, though, right? They were going to stop at a physical time.
No, they ended up deciding that they wanted to play to a certain number of people, to 75 people.
Oh, okay.
And I just didn't, because he was worried about whether or not he would. He thought the fields were going to be really big today and tomorrow, and was worried about having enough room for all the players that would get through to Monday. So he wanted to get down to like 75 players or something. But I mean, we were at 85, and at 85, he has room for 270 players. I mean, he was going to get down to this numbers anyways.
What do you mean 85?
We were at 85 at the end of level 6.
Oh, before we started level 7. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So it would have been fine to stop then, or it would have been fine to play a whole level. But I thought it should be one of the two things. I don't like this stopping it in mid-level.
Yeah, we shouldn't stop right after Gavin loses almost half his chips on a hand.
No, just right after he wins, right?
Especially on a hand, but especially though on a hand that would never that it should never have happened though.
Oh, please. It's the butterfly effect. So, what if that hand hadn't happened? I mean, what if you were going to be dealt a hand that didn't happen that would have doubled you through?
Right.
Then it would have been fine.
No, I still.
Yeah, he's a man of principle.
No, I would still be complaining about stopping in mid-level. I still don't think. I just don't understand the purpose of that. I don't understand what good that does.
You said that you were a bad short stack player before, and now you're better. So, what are the things that you changed that makes you better now?
I care about it.
Before you just. It was just random?
Yeah, before you're just looking to gamble.
Oh, we got a couple people playing the piano up there. Yeah.
Before we were just looking again, I would just probably want to fire it in again.
He would give up. He had no heart.
Right.
Really, what happens? He had no heart, and now he actually realizes when he gets short, he has to have a decent hand to put. To
right.
get
now I fight for every single chip. I mean, I play right down to my last chip hard.
Well, one of the things that I kind of went through, realized when I played in all those tournaments, I hadn't played in a lot of tournaments in the World Series this past year, was, at first, sometimes from some of these tournament books, they talk about, well, when you're short stacked, you got to go with any ace. And I realized that sometimes, especially when there's action in front of you, even if you're short, if all you have is one play and a guy makes a raise in front of you, are you going to go with like ace 3? What are you really ahead of, right, in terms of hands like that? I mean, when you were looking on a short stack player, what do you really? I mean, you're looking to push with.
Well, I'm not looking to call with ace 3. If that's what you're asking. By the way, was that intro guy sounded Canadian? He reminded me of this guy who was at my table yesterday. He was kind of burly guy. He had his jacket on. He had the hat. He looked like, what is it, Bob and Ted McKenzie from Saturday Night Live?
Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Bob and Doug McKenzie. Tough guy. Maybe he's a lumberjack and he's okay, one of those kind of guys. I don't know how he got in this tournament, but he kept mumbling, first card's always a good one. Like over and over and over. He kept saying, first card's always a good one. And then, they had told him I was a pro. I don't think he's a guy who has television wherever he comes. Probably in Canada they have some backwoods places.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. They don't
Doesn't
have
have to. I don't
TV
think he knew it indoor.
You know what though?
Yeah.
In the United States, they also have some backwoods.
Well,
places.
that's true. But anyway, here we are in Canada, and he kept saying, "Does it happen to you?" Then he finally said, "Does it happen to you too?" And so I said, "No." And he said, "Buddy." Do they use buddy a lot here? Buddy. What do you do, buddy? And I said, "Well, I always look at the second card first, so it doesn't happen to me." And seriously, I watched the next hand. He carefully put the first card to the side. He squeezed the second card, and then looked back at the first card. He threw his hand away and said, "Thanks, buddy. Good tip." He said, "The second card was an ace, but I wasn't feeling bad. First one was a bad card."
You see, you made that guy's day.
Yeah, right.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
We had some development. Again, I mean, there's just been unbelievable amounts of poker news going on. We had some little bit of development in the absolute case. We talked about it briefly yesterday. Mark Safe put up a public statement on Raw Vegas .tv. Barry, you listened to it beforehand. What did you think about what he had to say?
Well, Mark has really been demonized in this case, and again, I don't know. Mark's always been a nice guy. Some people are saying Mark did some stuff because he played really irregularly. Well, anyone who has played with Mark knows he plays very irregularly. So that isn't a good enough evidence for me. I don't know what happened. I'm sure we're having enough investigation, even apparently by Canadian police are involved in it. So I think it'll all come out what's true and what's not. So I'm not really worried about that. Mark's now been put in a tight spot as an Absolute Poker spokesman, initially defending them and saying that he thinks it'll come out nothing happened. We all know it was pretty clear something happened, and it is pretty clear something happened.
One of the other things you mentioned in his statement was that he said that this could have happened to any site like PokerStars or Full Tilt, and you're saying no, it really couldn't.
No, it actually couldn't. And I talked to the higher-ups at PokerStars, and I talked to the higher-ups at Full Tilt. And in the design of their software, even in the beta stage, they both made the conscious decision to make sure there was no super user account. There was an account where you could use the excuse, well, we want to see everything that's going on, make sure it's all right. They just didn't see the need for it, and B, one of the guys at PokerStars just said he could see that as a possible Pandora's box. That if an account like that existed, even a programmer now might have the ability to do something that they didn't know about. They wanted to make sure that the way the software was programmed, and it is on both sides, that the user only gets his cards, and he doesn't, for instance, get any even encrypted information about anything else. That if he somehow could unencrypt it, he could get other hole cards. No one's going to get your hole cards on that site. So no, it couldn't really happen because of the different design. The only way someone could get your hole cards is if they physically put something on your computer. Right, they got it off that way. And there have been people who've, apparently there have been claims that hotel rooms have been broken into to try to get what do they call it, a Trojan horse or whatever, on someone's computer to relay back their hole cards.
And, I mean, the thing that strikes me about this story the most, too, and you know, I think, like you said, Mark Safe's been taking a lot of heat, but his first reaction, I think one of the reasons why people are upset is it was kind of him and Absolute, it was just denial up front. I mean, it was, you know, it's almost like any other scandal. Let's say, Gavin, you're the lone spokesman for a website, and people said, we've got some real concerns. You know, Mark Safe kind of pretty much said, well, I don't believe it. I looked over the hand histories, and, you know, that wasn't true. Then as more information came out, you know, he had to take a step back and say, well, let's look at the auditors. I mean, is the denial right away the worst part of the story? Or the attempted, you know, kind of wash?
I kind of think that anytime you're a figurehead for a company that's accused of something before you know it, I think that's going to be the natural first.
Well, that's
response.
not for me. And I think, frankly, PokerStars understands if they do things that I think are unethical, I'm out of there. You know, my brand is more important to me than the PokerStars brand. And I've told them, when they hired me, I'm going to still say what I think. If you guys don't like me doing that, then don't pay me. You know, that's just the way it is. So no, you know, the denial, especially the evidence, was really strong. If anyone looked at the hand histories, something was going on. So no, I don't think that was the right thing to do. And you know, it makes us. I guess it harkens back to the Iraqi Minister of Information, where he always had to say how the Iraqis were winning the war, type of thing. You know, I don't.
It's like a propaganda thing.
Yeah, it's just straight propaganda. You know. That was wrong. That was a mistake to say it was the worst thing. It's all bad.
Well,
but then again, like I said yesterday, we still are able to say positively, if poker gets legalized in the United States and we get it out of the situation it is, these things aren't going to happen. People are going to have a place to go to appeal.
Well, we're going to come back with more poker news. We're going to go more into Barry's trip to Washington. Also go over the Poker Road website. We will be back here in a minute on Poker Road Radio. And we are back here on Poker Road Radio. Continuing on here with Poker News, we are at the North American Poker Championship in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Barry, a lot of the forums have picked up from your audio blog and from yesterday's show, your trip to Washington, D.C., and everyone seems really excited about what you had to say.
Yeah, the only thing is I heard a voicemail from John Pappas. And John Conyers and his group were saying that one of their questions was, should I be used or should someone like Annie Duke be used? Because the thing that Annie Duke shows is the diversity in poker. And frankly, when we were in Washington, I thought our two best advocates were Annie and Vanessa, just because people didn't expect women to be professional poker players and to be able to speak in an articulate fashion about poker.
One of the other things I wanted to address that was originally a IRS revenue procedure that's no longer going through was the IRS had come around and said, well, now we are actually going to withhold taxes on gross winnings of over $5,000. I think they put that out a few months back, and it was going to go into play in March 2008. Now they're saying that we're not going to do that. Barry, you had said that something similar happened about 10 years ago where the World Series of Poker was delayed at Binion's, right?
Yeah, either the World Series of Poker was delayed or the Hall of Fame might have even been canceled. It's so many years ago, and in those days I didn't play many tournaments. But it was the exact same thing where the IRS came in, and the agreement that got made at the time is that people would have to fill W-2Gs whenever they had any sort of substantial winnings. And so that practice that you still see at the Commerce or the Bellagio, they give you one of those W-2Gs. That started from that point. Before that, there wasn't anything like that. And that's going to continue to happen. I think the thing that was asked for this time in the bargaining with the IRS is that the casinos themselves do a better job of reporting the winnings.
Well, I think it was at a place, I know the Bike started doing it because of the Bellagio, where sometimes when you would win tournaments of or win caches of X amount of money, the Bellagio actually didn't even W-2G you. They would give you chips. And I think the IRS now wants, a full record. They want the report. And I think that was part of what the compromise was. And it hurt if that had gone through, the liquidity of the money in the poker world. I just thought it would have been amazing if you go into a tournament and say, you lost 80 grand right away, and then all of a sudden you cash for 50, but now they're going to withhold 25% of it. Yeah, you'll get it back in April, but maybe you can't use that money, to cycle back through the poker community.
Knowing the poker community as I do, at least for the professionals, on the amateur level, it might make a big difference. But at least for a lot of the professionals, it would probably be a good thing for a lot of them. A lot of these guys get their money and blow it anyways, and to have a few $100,000 coming back once a year might actually keep them in action a lot of times where they go out. I know that for the first little over a year that I played tournaments professionally, that was before I got my P1 visa for the United States and before I got my Social Security number. So as a Canadian, they would withhold 30% of my winnings. And I did it for a year, and then at the end of it, I got a refund. And, it kind of sucked a little bit, but, I mean, it wasn't that bad.
What is the difference in the tax law between Canada and the U.S.? I think a lot of people are I talk about in Europe how they don't tax gambling winnings. What is it as being a Canadian citizen working in the U.S.?
In Canada, they don't tax gambling winnings either, but the reason for the withholding for Canadians in the United States is because Canada doesn't have a tax treaty with the United States. The companies, the countries that the United States doesn't withhold from is because those countries have a tax treaty with the United States,
like in England or some of the European countries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, moving along here, we're going to introduce what I wanted to do yesterday. We didn't have time to do, which is the Cash Game Corner, and we're going to do the Cash Game Corner, and we're going to cover one-table satellites. And the reason being is because I went up there. They have a small poker room here at Fallsview, and it is impossible to get up into a cash game. They have no limit games, exclusively no limit games, which I found a little bit surprising. They have no mixed games or anything like that. 5-5, 5-10, 10-25, 25-50, and 50-100. And the only thing that I could get into was the 1200 one table. All the cash game lines had 3-hour waits. And I played in 2 of them last night, and I am absolutely amazed. And I know, Barry, you hop into some of these, how weak the play is in some of these one tables. And how often do you guys play sometimes in these to get a cheap seat, and how often do you think some of the pros do to get a cheap seat into these main events?
I almost never do. I played one. I won my seat into the LAPC because I showed up the night before and had nothing else to do, so I played one. I think that's the only one I've played this year. I used to play almost exclusively single table satellites when I was first starting out, but not anymore so much. I think there's a few pros that do. I think the pros that are the bigger name pros, I think most of them show up late and don't bother with the satellites too much.
Yeah, I actually had never done it until last year here. Mm-hmm. What happened is I wanted Alex to play in the tournament, and she said, we've been spending too much money on these and I haven't been doing well. And I said, well, if I win a seat, will you play in it? She said, yeah. So I went in there, played a satellite, and I won it. And that was my first one, in many years since I, played smaller games. The World Series many years ago, I played a couple satellites. And also the side games, I think actually I've been missing out. A lot of times when I go to these tournaments, travel away, like to the European tournaments, I haven't done that many, but I did some just a few weeks ago. And the younger players are always in there playing the cash games, and I've probably been missing out. I think my mentality that the games are too small for me is a mistake, because I could use that extra money to pay for expenses and pay for my buy-ins, so I think I'm going to start doing more of that.
Now, what did you notice about the level of play when you did play in those?
Well, I played a little bit actually the other day. Instead of playing in one of the satellites, I played in the side game.
What side game?
It was 25-50.
Okay.
And we did have a couple loose players. One guy hadn't played much at all. As a matter of fact, I would have had the 10,000 seat one. I got up about 5,000 right away, and I raised, a guy re-raised, and I moved in. He called me. I had ace-king. He had ace-deuce, and he hit a deuce. If I'd won that hand, I would have won the 10,000. I still won about 3,000 or 4,000, and it made me think, I can come to these tournaments and maybe pick up 20,000, 30,000 if I take the games a little seriously. Although usually the way I do it, just like Gavin said, I come in late, I buy in, I stick in the tournament, normally a couple days, and when I get knocked out, I'm going home.
Well,
Except this trip, I have to stay and do PokerRoad, so if I get knocked out this time, I will probably start playing the side games.
You're going to have to stick around. I don't know if you had a chance, Gavin, to go up there, but there's just some of the poker room itself is just so physically small that it's like they're just trying to cram everybody in there. Obviously, they don't see this type of action. Well, of course, if you have any questions about cash games for the Cash Game Corner, you can email us at prradio@pokerroad.com and any other general emails. Again, prradio at PokerRoad.com. You can also leave a message out, 1-877-836-ROAD. And I want to read an email here that we got.
Just out of curiosity, though, Bart, you said you played two 1200s where the play was very weak. What were your results?
Fourth and third, unfortunately. And each one took 2.5, but it was a great structure, though. It was a great structure. Each one took 2.5 hours, and it was just, I mean, when you sit there and you play for 3 hours and then 2.5 hours and nothing to show for it, it's just, I mean, I know long term it's great expected value, but it's just, it's just brutal. You know, when you get all your chips in with ace 9 versus a guy with queen 9 and he sucks out. Well, that's just the nature of it, I guess, those one tables. But, yeah, I kind of... Well, why'd you ask that question, Gavin? I kind of already knew the answer.
I was just curious.
So we're going to get to the emails here. We had this email here from Michael from San Mateo, California. He says, hey, guys, first off, congratulations on the new site. The site is awesome, and I look forward to what all you guys will be bringing us. Due to Joe's unfortunate situation, it gives me the chance to ask Barry a question I've been hoping to get some clarification on. I recently listened to a podcast on Pocket Fives from May, which Barry was the guest. In the podcast, Barry was discussing tournaments and made the statement about frequently making it to day 2 of the majority of the tournaments he plays in, but felt like he wasn't gambling enough to win. He then went on to say, excuse me, this was sometimes due to a lack of table feel and the inability to sense weakness in his opponents. Could you possibly expand a little more on what you meant by gambling more, Barry?
Yeah, well, if you have the cash game mentality that I came in with initially playing, I'm trying to end up with more money than I started with when I play cash games. If I buy in for 10,000, if I end up with 15 or 20, that's good. Tournaments aren't like that, and we see a guy, for instance, like David Pham, that I think we're going to be asked about in the hand today. David's in there just wildly gambling, putting people to the test over and over and over. I saw him raise the pre-flop raiser Nam Lee, who's a pretty solid player coming in, 5 straight times, got him to lay down. I know a lot of times David just had a bad ace. That's the way David plays. He puts you to the test, and a lot of times early in these tournaments, that's the way he gets a good stack. He's just always putting people to the test and gambling. But if you put David in a side game, he often isn't going to do as well on the turn and the river, because he doesn't play that many pots with turns and rivers, frankly. He's usually just bulldozing, putting in chips ahead of time and knocking people out of pots. It's a different mentality playing in tournaments. Gavin's way of playing tournaments is playing a large variety of hands, and he feels he's going to play post-flop better than his opponents and be able to pick up chips. I'm more of a pre-flop player, and I push people around, but after the flop, I will make plays that other people would say, why are you doing this? For instance, if I have a nut flush draw, I'm usually finding a way to just send it in, getting my fold equity, and if they don't fold, then I'm going to have to hit the draw. But I'm playing a volatile style so that when I do make it to day 2 and further on, I've got a lot of chips. I don't feel there's any reward for getting into day 2 or even in later days and barely eking it into the money. That just isn't going to get you money in the long run. You've got to play a style that gets you towards the top.
Well, are there any types of tournaments where you wouldn't gamble it up and it's more about survival, specific types of structures, or where, it's not worth it to try to risk your tournament life early on to accumulate chips, or is that really kind of...
I think it's always worth it to accumulate. I think probably the best example of the tournament you're sort of suggesting would be the 25K event that we play at the Bellagio at the end of the year, where you start with 50,000 in chips, and it changes a little bit. Like, for instance, in a tournament here, the hands that a hand that you really want to play in one of these normal WPT events is like a small pair, because you will, the way you make a huge pot is to flop a set against an overpair, right? Really, it changes when you get to the 25K event in April, and where you're starting with 50,000 in chips, and smaller pairs have less value, because really the only way you're going to go broke in day 1 in the Bellagio is if you flop set under set, in most cases, because you've got so many chips there. So I think that might be one tournament where you might change your strategies, and obviously with 50,000 in chips, where Barry's saying if he flops a nut flush draw, he wants to try to ship it in. When he's got 50,000 in chips, he's going to be less likely to ship it in. He might put in a large raise.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes you have to just call when you have that much, or like an ace king. When you're relatively short on chips, that's a hand you're just playing all in. You're hoping someone raises in front of you and you put the pressure on them. When you have a lot of chips, ace king's a delicate hand to play and can be tough, because you just don't always want to get in a situation where you're at best going to be racing and at worst going to be a big dog. It's a different thing. And another type of play I'll make in these tournaments, because I am trying to get a hold of chips and because they're antes in, which is typically different than most people play in side games. Just the late position, someone raising in late position, me re-raising and isolating, or trying to knock them out. In a side game, you let those things go, because in side games you're normally thinking about winning big pots. You're sitting back, you want to have the goods, flop a set, make the nut flush, and then get the money in against a smaller flush. Often in the side games, your big bets are where you've actually already got the goods. But in a tournament, it's not that way. It's really worth it to pick up these small pots on a continual basis. And you'll see the good tournament players are winning a lot of small pots. It's not that they're winning the one big pot.
Now, it's interesting, though, in the first 1,500 event, the one I got 8th, where there was 3,000 people over this summer, I thought the tournament was structured in such a way where when we got down to 20 or 30 people, the average, say, Harrington M, where with the antes and the blinds, was only like 6 or 7. So it was almost like everybody was shipping it in. There was just one move. And I kind of came with the idea that, or the way that I played that tournament was, I was actually trying to survive in the beginning levels. I mean, you had to accumulate chips, but I never really wanted to put my tournament life on the line on kind of a 50-50 spot, because I was thinking once you got to that spot, you having a lot of chips didn't make a difference anyways, because it's all one move towards the end.
Wow. I mean, I have a hard time believing that when you were at 20 people, the average M was 6 or 7 in any World
in the
Series.
1,500 event,
it was kind of crazy.
Unbelievably short.
That M thing that's the total number of chips it takes to play around.
Right,
okay.
right.
For most people.
I think it must have obviously been very slow moving, getting to that stage. People must not have got bust out early. But I mean, every tournament's going to have that happen. Every tournament, that's sort of the nature of tournaments, is that every tournament will come to a point where the play is kind of gone. I mean, it happens in all the WBT events. It happens everywhere. So, I mean, I guess in your one it happened a little sooner. I don't know that you should alter your play just because you think it's going to get to that point at some time during the tournament.
But none of us want to get our chips in as a caller with a 50% or less chance. But we do often play and get our chips in, but we're the raiser. You don't mind being the raiser and putting in the last bet and putting the other guy in a guess. Sometimes as it gets short, it might be even King Queen against Ace Jack, which aren't all that different, obviously the Ace Jack's favorite, or a pair against overcards, which is more typical. And we try to play those hands in a way that we get the last bet, right. And on a certain amount of times we knock the other guy out.
Well, I hope that answers your email, Michael. Again, you can email us at PokerRoad Radio or prradio@pokerroad.com. We're going to go to a couple phone calls, 877-836-ROAD, and I believe we actually have a phone call from Joe Seabach who called in.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Joe. Just calling to let you guys know that I heard that you were soldiering on and still doing the shows. I'm proud of you. And life's not too bad for me. The cell that the Canadians put me in, they actually upgraded it a little bit so I could stretch my arms out. And that's about it. I wish I could be there with you. I wish I could be playing the tournament and doing the first round of Poker Road radio shows, but the powers that be had other plans. So hope everything goes well. And if I get out of here, I'll catch up with you guys in Foxwoods. See ya.
Now, Barry, you have some more information as to what happened, right?
Well, first of all, he should have never insulted the whole East Coast on their poker playing ability. Is it really surprising?
Joe the jerk-off Seabuck.
That's right. And that woman who stopped him, that was the mother of the guy who named him that. So I think he made a big mistake there. And I talked to Kat Kowal, who's high up in the WPT. She's the one I always call to get things done. I don't know what her title is. But anyway, I asked her what had gone on with the WPT last year that the border...
that they shipped us inside when we crossed.
Yeah, the Border Patrol was looking out for them. And what she told me is whenever they go to another country, they've got to fill out forms. They've even got to have like an immigration, or not an immigration, customs attorney or something like that, tell them what the proper procedure is. So like in Canada, they have to have a certain number of Canadians working on their staff. And they had to register all of their people with Border Patrol. And so what happened when Joey said he was doing a radio show, they immediately figured he was with the WPT, and then they looked on their list, and they thought here was a guy that didn't get put on the list and is coming in illegally in that way.
Oh, really?
That's actually why he got stopped. So Gavin was right yesterday when he said if he had just said he was playing the tournament, he would be here, and I wouldn't have to be sitting with you guys.
Yeah. So we'd all be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why he went about saying that, but maybe it happened for a reason. He's back in LA. We got another phone call. Moving along here.
Hell yeah, Joe and Code having her back. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo!
That was it, huh? Oh, wasn't that the RainCon phone call? Oh, here we got the RainCon.
I like that one. That last one was good, though, man.
Now, was that Canadian or not?
Woo-hoo-hoo! Back to you.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's so good to have you back on the air. Love poker, love the show. I'm fired up for the PokerRoad.com. I figured I'd call and do my best Tavad Khan impression because I'm so fired up that you guys are back. Yeah! Let's do this one time! That's how it... one time!
That guy's good.
Was
Yeah,
that
we're going to take that and use that as a drop, I think.
I think that actually might have been Havad Khan.
I know, that was great, wasn't it?
I truly believe it was Havad Khan.
I really liked that guy's antics. I mean, some people
I didn't mind it either.
I mean, people were like, "Oh, this isn't good for poker." Calm down. I thought it was hilarious.
Well, I've met Havad, and he seemed like a nice guy to me. I liked him, and let's face it, if it didn't work, they wouldn't have put it on, and it obviously does work to get attention, and he'll probably never be back there again, and there's a good chance neither Gavin or I or you, Bart, even with your incredible stuff you were talking about, your strategy of playing these things.
I mean, I don't see how you're not making more final tables. If you can come third and fourth in back-to-back single table satellites, I mean, you're obviously a player.
We're just going to have to continue to play heads up, and I'm just going to have to continue to beat you, Gavin. That's all.
If you continue to get hit with the deck like you did that time, then you will. That's for sure.
Looked like the whole World Series. He was up there just about every time he played.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Well, we're going to move along here to hand of the day, and we want to address yesterday because I know, Barry, you wanted to add a little bit something, and we talked about John Little. He was the chip leader because he quadded up on the river when he flopped bottom set against an overset. And, we had talked about a little bit about this hand where it was a Jack 9-8 flop, and there was a raiser in position who had aces, and Campbell called, and another guy called from up front, and again, Jack 9-8, and it was aces versus a set of jacks versus a set of eights. The original pre-flop raiser, when it got checked to him, the pot was 3,000. He bet 10,000 with his aces. Campbell called with with bottom set.
No, top set.
Or excuse me, Campbell called with top set, and then Little had the
Bottom set.
had the bottom
Shoved
set
in.
and then quadded at the end. Now the point you wanted to make was it's just too much of a bet there by aces, right? From up
Yeah,
back.
one thing that we missed yesterday is you did say it was a big overbet. The guy bet 10,000, and one thing that I see people do is when they have the overpair, they want to make a big bet to let everyone know they're committed. Okay, and then what happens when they get raised? And they finally realize, well, they probably don't have the best hand because they already let the guy know they're committed. Then they say, well, I'm pot stuck. I've got too much of my chips in the pot. So on the first hand, you don't have to bet $10,000 into a $4,000 pot to let people know you really have a good hand and you're committed. $3,000 or $4,000 usually does the trick. And even in the times where it doesn't, where the guy has, as Gavin was mentioning yesterday, something like a pair of tens, by betting too much and letting him know you really do have the best hand, you may stop him from giving you action the few times you do have the best hand.
It's a case where you're betting so much that you're going to get the worst hands to fold and only the ones that are.
That's right.
you.
You're pretty much guaranteeing when you finally get played with, you've taken away any room for someone to take the pot away from you with the worst hand. So you're only getting in with the worst hand, and then in addition, people usually have convinced themselves at that point, well, I've got so much in already, I can't fold. So they first said that they were making the play to find out that they were beat. And then when they find out they're beat, they say, well, I can't fold now.
And if he wanted to do it, with an overbet, if he wanted to prove with an overbet that, to really find out that he was beat, what would be wrong with 5,000? Then you can at least still fold the head. And you're still making a kind of a gross bet. 5,000 into 3,000 is still kind of a little bit of a gross overbet, but at least then you aren't committed to playing your hand out when you're.
You don't have to overcall with obviously.
And one thing you're saying, well, how do you know you're beat? Well, that comes up more often in a three-way pot than just a heads-up pot. Sometimes heads-up you say, well, the guy could have the draw hand too, and you call anyway. But in a three-way pot, it does happen frequently enough that you get the real information. That information comes in the form of raise, re-raise, move in call type of thing. Now you know for sure you're dead.
I'll tell you what, with that particular hand though, I mean I've played a few times with Riney Campbell, and if I played in a pot where it went 10,000 and Riney Campbell calls 10,000, there's no way I'm getting a chip in there with 3/8. Because there's no way that man is going to call $10,000 with anything worse than 3/8.
Really? Because you said yesterday, well, it's really difficult to get away from
I said
sets.
I said in a lot of situations, but I wasn't really aware that when that particular action that Jonathan Little was the third guy getting his money, and I just thought, usually set over set it's going to get in.
Yeah.
But when you've got Riney Campbell calling a $10,000 bet, I mean, I played with him at Turks the whole time, and this guy that throws away like hands that I'm sitting there going, oh my God.
Well,
I think he's wrong to throw away a lot of the hands he throws away. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he's necessarily playing correctly, but like when I look at the laydowns that this guy was making at Turks and Caicos, that I was like, oh my God, I'd call with that for sure. I'd call with that. That's like there'd be no question I'd call with that hand.
Well, when I flashed 7-4 of hearts and folded it when we played together last time, you couldn't believe I folded that either. So.
Pre-flop. That was pre-flop, dude. You know how many hands you can make with that?
Well, we're going to move along to the hand of the day from today, and this was between David Pham and John Juanda. And early on in one of the earlier levels, Pham opened for a raise to 300 in middle position, and Juanda called in the cutoff. And the board came out 10-8-4, all diamonds. So 10-8-4, 3 diamonds. Pham made a $700 continuation bet, and Juanda called. The turn was an 8 of hearts. Pham now bets 2,000. The board reads 10-8-4, 8 with 3 diamonds. Juanda moves in for 8 more. Pham goes in the tank. He asked Juanda if he has a small flush, if he made trips, and he finally calls with 9-3 of diamonds. He flopped the small flush, took some time with it when Juanda made the big raise on the turn, and Juanda had Jack-10 of hearts, just top pair, waited to the turn, didn't see another diamond, shipped it in, did not fill up on the river. Interesting little hand.
What was the bet? He brought it in for 300.
Brought it in for 300.
So the blinds were obviously 50 and 100. And what was the bet on the flop?
700 in a call, then 2,000 and a move in from Juanda.
Well, first of all, David Pham is really a special kind of player. He's just a tournament player, and he's a real aggressive tournament player. And John Juanda is one of those guys who's not going to back down from anyone. And when I play against other good players, especially in the cash game, normally I'm not looking to play against the good players. I'm looking to play against the bad players. But David Pham makes you play against him because he's in so many pots and he's raising so many times. You have to take a stand. And what happened there is he kind of overbet the flop. Normally when people see an all-suited flop, that's a hard flop to play when you don't have a flush. Normally you tread lightly. Some people just check whether they've got it or not when it comes suited. Some people make a small bet. Betting 700, more than twice what he brought it into, usually announces that the guy doesn't have the flush and he's trying to drive you out. John Juanda is a very good poker player, and I think he initially was saying, okay, David does not have the flush, that much I know. And so when the 2,000 was bet on the turn, and then John went all in, right?
Yep, he went all in on the turn.
He went all in. He was saying, I'm using that information that I know he doesn't have a flush, but since I called, David doesn't know I don't have the flush,
right,
and I may get him to fold the best hand, and it's David Pham who could have just about anything. And typically the hand David's going to have, frankly, is a big diamond. The ace of diamonds is what that often will be, and John doesn't want to give him the free draw, so he moved in. So John played reasonably against David Pham, but David had a Gavin hand, 9-3 of diamonds, and he was suited, of course. He was playing it fast because he didn't want to let John get a cheap flush draw in case John had a big diamond.
I mean, that's also pretty indicative of, would Pham make that bet, or somebody else would make that bet protecting against maybe like a black overpair or something like that on the flop. He's scared of the diamond, something like 2 blackjacks or 2 back kings. Is that what Juanda was thinking? Just a hand that he could push him off of
the
on the
problem
turn.
is you probably aren't going to push David Pham
off
an overpair.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say when Barry was going through his meticulous analysis. I think that Juanda makes a pretty bad play there because of the player he's doing it against. I think that people that are going to try to make David Pham make laydowns are really shooting themselves in the foot most of the time.
So Pham is not going to fold 2 blackjacks or
no,
put 2
I'm not saying he's
there.
not going to, but I mean David Pham's a pretty good player, and he's and he understands his sort of his style and his image, and he's willing to make calls that you might think that you could get him to move it off. So he might have a big overpair there with no diamond, and realize that John's capable of doing this and just make the call anyways,
as opposed to a small overpair. But
yeah, exactly.
But really. I don't think John necessarily made a bad play there. I think John felt he had probably the best hand. Top pair against David Pham is often going to be the best hand.
But it's never going to be the best hand when David calls.
That's true, but he basically was taking a stand, and David didn't have a lot of chips left. And John was put in a position. Does he want to just call here, let a card come off? You know, sometimes you get in those positions where if once you make the decision that you're going to call and you think you most likely have the best hand, which is reasonable for him to think with top pair, if there's only now 8,000 behind, which at that point was just approximately the size of the pot, you a lot of times say, okay, just put the rest of it in now instead of waiting, for the bet on the river, which pretty much if David didn't have the best hand, wasn't going to come. It was probably going to go check on the river. And the only time he was going to get action...
Dave is not capable of firing a third shell? I think he's one of the most capable players.
He is, but that's a really dangerous situation when it comes 3 suited on the flop and the guy still calls those barrels. It's a tough time. Remember, David doesn't have more chips than John. He's going to have to put his tournament life on the line almost there to fire that third barrel. Of course, David's capable, but I'm just saying, you have to be there with these things a lot of times. But I wouldn't just go as far as Gavin said that it's a bad play. That's easy for us to say when the play doesn't work.
Well, moving along here, we are going to have Ninad Medic coming in and joining us shortly. So we're going to take a quick little break, and we will be back with him in a minute on PokerRoad Radio. And we are back here with PokerRoad Radio. I'm Bart Hanson with Gavin Smith and Barry Greenstein. Continuing on with our Canadian theme, we have Ninad Medic joining us in the booth. How you doing today, Ninad?
Doing good. Could be better, but doing okay.
Of course, we are at the dinner break of Day 1B of the North American Poker Championship from Niagara Falls. Tell us how your day has been going.
It's been going okay, but just have some advice for the listeners. Don't overplay ace-king in the first 2 levels.
Is that what happened to you, basically?
Yeah, twice I tried to overplay it, push people around, and it didn't work. Lost like 20,000 chips, but I still have like 14, so...
Well, that's an interesting question, too, because we were starting, or I was asking you, you played a lot of cash games and such, before the show. The first few levels of these tournaments, I mean, in a $10,000 tournament, you get a lot more chips than you do in a smaller tournament. Some of our listeners might be accustomed to playing 300 or 500 buy-ins. Sometimes these games in the first few levels play like a cash game. Do you take that experience that you've had in playing deep stack no-limit cash games and use it here in the early stages of the tournaments?
Yeah, of course. It helps a lot. That's mostly what I do is play cash games, and almost all cash games are deep stacked, unless there's some really big games that are cap games. But most of the cash games that I play are deep stacked poker, and that's mostly what I play. So that helps a lot with these tournaments. Most of these tournaments, you start with double chips. Now Foxwoods changed to you start with 30,000 chips. So the structures are really good in the early levels. You can really gamble in the first couple of rounds. Do
you find that some of the guys that exclusively play tournaments make some mistakes in terms of maybe pot control when they're really, really deep in the beginning of tournaments versus guys where that are experienced no-limit cash game players?
I've noticed it. I've noticed it sometimes. Some tournament specialists, they don't really know. Well, they don't. I think they don't play like the river and the turn really well. They overplay like some marginal hands. Whereas, I don't know, cash game players, they keep the pot smaller and stuff like that.
With more like their one-pair type hands.
Yeah.
Of course, you won the Foxwoods event, and we're going to go into, after this, we're going down there and going to be a defending champion. Mimi Tran finished 3rd in that event.
Only because when it was 3-handed and Mimi had twice as many chips as Ninad, I gave her strategy which would have frozen him out of the tournament. I basically told her, because the third player wasn't as good as they were, Ninad was clearly the best player. I said, don't, raise whenever Ninad limps and that guy comes in and freeze him out of playing any pots. But she misunderstood. She thought it was just against Ninad. He kept getting in these limped-in pots with EG, and he basically got his all money in with EG drawing dead a couple times. Yeah. If she would have played, I seriously think I could have frozen Ninad out of the tournament without ever looking at my cards. Not if we'd have been on equal chips, but at that point, Ninad was the short stack, Mimi was in the middle, and EG had the lead. The way the chip structure was, there was an easy way to freeze him out of the tournament. And unfortunately, by the time the next break came and I could talk to Mimi, Ninad had already doubled up at least once, and that strategy wouldn't work anymore.
What was your strategy? I'm interested.
I told you, it was just if you limp and you're going to try to play small pot with him, just over-raise, and even if it costs her chips and you have a big hand re-raise, just make sure you never get to play against EG. That would have just frozen you out. And it ends up the way the hands were set up, you'd probably never even been able to play, because the fact is you never did get a big pre-flop hand
Yeah.
You just flopped the goods a lot of times,
Yeah.
and he had nothing. So if she would have employed that strategy, you would have just gotten knocked down.
That's true. That's true.
And so, yeah, it was, so you can thank me if I'd have just let Mimi, if I would have just let Mimi play the way she'd been playing.
Yeah.
I don't know what would have happened. But the
couldn't
way
have
it
turned out
was,
worse.
yeah, it couldn't have been worse. Yeah, exactly. So as usual, actually, I've learned a lesson. I did it with Joey a couple times too, where he was at final tables and told him what to do. And the lesson is,
Let them play.
you don't teach at the final table.
Let them play.
What I've learned is you can tell them how the other players play, but giving them instructions and trying to let them play like you is a mistake. And I'm not going to make that mistake.
Now, of course, you played college basketball. And, I think we talked about this on that show before. When you got to that final stage there at Foxwoods, I mean, did any other factors come into, like a nervousness factor, any other factors come in outside of poker when you were there, or you just totally zoned in, or, did the cameras bother you or anything like that? I mean, were there distractions when you make a WPT final table?
Yeah. No, not really. The college basketball that didn't really help, but it's just
Waterloo.
Yeah, Waterloo Canadian college basketball didn't really affect the final table of the poker.
Wait. That's big time, man. Don't worry.
Big time.
don't let them down your college
Well, I
ball
mean,
in
people
Canada.
watching, you got a couple
All the
thousand
cameras
people.
and lights over there. Yeah, that didn't really help out. But I don't know. I made a couple other final tables, but I don't know. I'm just by nature I'm kind of calm. I didn't let it affect me. I don't know. I just when I'm at a poker table, I just concentrate on the table and on the cards. So
Now, Gavin talked about how this event seems to be traditionally a little bit weaker than some of the other WPT events yesterday. How do you find the play so far? On day 1A, they said that there weren't really a lot of big-name pros, a lot of internet guys. Is this any different from some of the other deep WPT events?
yeah. Well, in general, the East Coast tournaments are a lot weaker than the West Coast, Las Vegas tournaments and LA tournaments. But this is a pretty good field here. I heard the day 1A Friday was the best field, but today even still my table is pretty good. Looking around, I don't see a lot of the top players. A lot of satellite winners here, so the field is good.
And how many chips do you have right now?
I have around 14 or 15.
So you're down a little bit from.
Yeah, you started with 20, and I have 15.
So, and the great thing about these structures, you're not in really a short mode here. Do you have some sort of strategy going back in where now you're at 14 as opposed to maybe where you'd like to be at 35? Do you have to change some things around a bit?
No, just play my game. Hopefully catch some cards. I don't know. I bluffed away a lot of like 20,000. But yeah, it's a good table. If I get the cards, they're gonna pay me. Just see how it goes.
Now, you're talking about how over the last couple months you haven't really gotten a chance to play in a lot of high-level cash games, but that's really where you made your money. You're a Full Tilt sponsor guy, right? Or a friend of Full Tilt?
Yeah. One of the Full Tilt pros. So yeah.
Full Tilt pros. And what are your games of choice in cash games?
Well, cash games, it depends. When I travel, play the tournaments, I play pretty much the biggest no-limit cash game there is. I play no limit hold'em, and I play PLO lately, Pot Limit Omaha.
You play some Chinese poker on the road, I heard.
Chinese poker. That is, it's a fun little game. But the problem with that game is everybody plays on paper, and a lot of the poker world is broke. So, it's a lot of IOUs in Chinese poker.
Well, one of the other things I wanted to bring up is, since the online legislation, and if you've played online in the last year, have you noticed that those games up at the higher levels that you play at, have they toughened up at all, or is it really not affected? I spoke with Brian Townsend a couple weeks ago, and he said at his level, nothing really changed, but, more towards the mid-stakes, it really got a lot tougher. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what I was going to say. Yeah, the top games are pretty much the same. It's just there's only a certain number of players that play those top games, and that's not going to change. But yeah, the mid-level games, I don't even know what's considered mid-level, but like 25, 50, 100, whatever, 10, 25, those games, I haven't played there in a long time, but I have a lot of friends that play there. They say those games are getting tougher.
5100 mid-level.
Mid-level. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's considered. The games are getting so huge right now.
Yeah,
I don't know. 200, 400 is a really big game online. A really big game, especially like playing online, playing 3 screens. You can win and lose a lot of money in that game.
Absolutely. Well, Ninad Manik, I want to thank you for coming on our show on our second day of the Poker Road, and good luck to you in the rest of this tournament, and we'll see you in Foxwoods.
That's all we have for Niagara. What the heck's going on? I mean, it's like we just started. I mean, we didn't get to. Don't we get to talk to him?
You know what?
Yeah.
The powers of editing, Barry. If you have some questions, go ahead.
I do have some questions. One of the things I just want to point out that the Nat is what I think of as a professional poker player. Calm demeanor. He's a thinking type of player. A lot of times people ask me about some of the guys who act up on TV. That's what they think are poker professionals. The Nat's not that way. He's your poker. This is what a poker player is. And but of course there were a lot of people don't know who the Nat is, and I'm sure you've had to think about it. I'm sure you realize if you were more animated, loud, goofy, instead of just playing your craft poker, you get more attention too. What do you think about that whole thing?
Yeah, I have thought about it, but I don't think that's a big deal. Like, yeah, it has crossed my mind, but I'm who I am. I'm not going to change for whatever to get attention or anything like that. So,
well, I believe that, but don't you sometimes doesn't bother you as a poker professional sometimes when people who aren't very good at poker but draw attention to themselves get some of the limelight that you don't get by being a skilled player.
No, it doesn't really bother me. I can't say that. No, once in a while, I guess I think about it. Like I just laugh to myself. Like this guy's getting attention. It's kind of funny, but it I guess to a point it bothers me. But whatever. I know a lot of the players that do get the attention. So whatever.
Well, to all three.
It's not a problem.
Yeah, you get to beat them out of the money later. So
yeah.
Okay. To all three of you guys, do you lose some ancillary value by not basically being a jackass at the table?
Well, first of all,
I am a jackass. I am a jackass. Thank you very much.
That's right, Gavin. And Gavin dresses up and stuff, and he does all sorts of weird things.
But you know what I'm saying. I mean, you make a spectacle of yourself, and you don't even really need to be good at poker, and you might get an endorsement.
Well, I'm not so sure that's true. I think to get an endorsement at some point you had to have won something, or at least done well. I mean, I guess the latest example would probably be this Havad Khan who got the deal with PokerStars. I think mostly he got that because of his bouncing around and his demeanor. That Rain Khan or whatever in the World Series.
Okay.
The bulldozer guy, the guy that was...
Whatever. He obviously didn't watch it.
But anyways, I think he got that mostly because he got a ton of TV time because of the way he acted. But he also did end up coming, fifth in the main event of the World Series.
All
so
these guys
there are some results.
Yeah, all these guys have to have some good tournament skills. And
right.
Since I'm in my roots, I'm a cash game player. I always maybe give more credit to the cash game players. That's why I was pointing up serve. Your serve, what, 2-1-2-7?
I was serve 2-1-2-7 on full tilt.
Right. Does that mean that there were like 2,126 other Serbian players before you who tried to take the name?
No,
I didn't know it was that big in Serbia.
That's his ranking.
Oh, his ranking.
That's his national ranking.
That's ranking in Serbia currently.
Right.
I moved up a couple spots lately, but I can't change it.
Okay.
Now, you Canadian guys, have you guys known each other for a long time, too? I mean, you guys
we've known each other a few years, I guess, now.
yeah. Come up through the ranks.
My first tournament, actually, he was at my table giving chips away. Bahamas, like 3 years ago.
That's what I like to do, yeah. I bluffed off a bunch to you, I believe.
Yeah. He tried to make me fold pocket. I don't know, maybe pocket kings. No, actually, no, I didn't. I don't know. You bluffed some chips away.
Yeah, you're a better player now. You'd probably be able to lay it down now, but
no, I never fold, man. You have a no.
I mean, how is the skill level? I mean, 3 years. What, you've been on tour, playing regularly in the tournaments for about 2 to 3 years? Is that right? 2 years?
Yeah, about 2.5.
Have you noticed any changes in the skill level of the players, or any stylistic changes?
In the tournaments, it depends on which tournaments. There's, like I said, the East Coast tournaments, they're pretty juicy. The West Coast tournaments are tough. I don't know. What do you guys think? The skill level the last 3 years,
I don't notice it a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, what I noticed is the 19 to 21-year-olds that we'll have in this field are seasoned online players. A lot of them, so they're going to be pretty decent. The ones who have played a lot. I don't know who they are. I thought it was interesting. Sorel Mizzi said to me that the game has gone through an enormous change and a revolution in play the last couple of years. I said, "Oh, really?" I mean, he seems to think all these guys are incredible players.
I haven't really noticed an increase.
I would say just, and mostly it's because fields have grown. I think there are more better players. I guess more better is not very good English. There are more good players now than there were before, but there's also more bad players than there were before.
That's the way I look at it. The
the ratio,
percentages, I agree with you.
So there isn't a fall off of like you have an influx of bad players and they play in a bunch of events and they don't score, but the good players stick around and then it's not a cream to the crop type of thing.
Well, it is sort of, but I mean, there's still so many sites still run satellites and everything that people still get in the same way, and you can still get people getting in for very small amounts of money. They're still going to the casinos and winning satellites. Most of in $10,000 events, most of your bad players are the people that are getting in through the satellites. Okay, there's not a lot of bad players that are taking $10,000 out of their pocket and going and putting it down. So whatever tournament you play in, the more satellite entries they get, the more bad players you're going to have, and the less they get, the less you're going to have.
I mean, I would think that the one of the biggest differences too, and you talk about the younger players, is that just the overall, I guess, average aggression factor, with these new players coming in is a lot higher, and it makes maybe these guys squeeze for some chips in certain spots where maybe it wasn't that difficult to pick up chips. Now it is, because these guys are putting constant pressure on you.
No, I would agree that the new players are more aggressive, but I mean, good players can counteract aggression. I mean, there's ways to counteract, people that are playing overly aggressive. You just have to trap them a little more.
Yeah, maybe it's just that there aren't some. Maybe we used to have more just players just giving the chips totally away and had no shot. We probably don't have as much of that going on because the reason is because people are able to get their experience playing online before they come to these tournaments.
Yeah, but there are.
But they are. Yeah, they still exist.
There's still players that give it away. It depends where you go.
Yeah, I heard
Turks
at
and
your
Caicos.
table there's some guy just with ace king just kept bluffing money out. Oh, that was
Yeah.
Well, Nanad, Barry, you got anything else for Nanad that you want to address?
I want to find out the scoop on. And I was involved in a little bit of prop betting recently at Turks and Caicos.
Oh, that's always interesting. Yeah.
And I want to know what went on in the basketball court. I heard you took down some serious money there, and I also heard you were involved in the standing in the water prop bet too, or something.
Yeah, the basketball court. First, the pool bet. I don't know. We were just drinking by the pool over there. We had somebody. I think David Williams. We had like 10 of us there, and David Williams mentioned for somebody to stand in the pool like chest high for 24 hours with food and water, would they be able to do it? And I was ready to do it, but I wanted to do it for a big amount. I didn't want to sit there for 24 hours for a small amount, so I offered to do it for over 100,000, and they thought about it, and I don't know. They told me they would do it for like 60,000 or 70,000. And I don't know. I offered over 100, and then they threw in a bunch of different rules, and I didn't do it. And Matt Gianetti, Hazard's online name, he ended up doing it for 12 hours for 15,000. That was the thing. Then he had to start at midnight to noon, and he already had been drinking a little bit, so it was pretty tough. And so. He did it for 15,000, but then the side action is where the story was. There was like 80,000 in side action bet.
Wasn't there some story too that somebody was concerned that for your health you shouldn't do it?
Yeah,
I read somewhere.
They said because the temperature of the pool is lower than your body temperature. They said that he wouldn't be able to last more than 4 hours, but he has room. He's allowed to swim. He's allowed to keep his temperature up. Like I bet 12,000 on him. And he made it. He ended up making it the 12 hours.
Was that credit you got, or you got paid?
No. This one was actually cash, but then I lost it on the basketball court. Just some little 19-year-old kid beat me on the basketball court for 30,000. I'm still steaming over that.
1-on-1?
No, shooting threes. He could shoot threes. I offered to play him 1-on-1, but he didn't want to do that. But yeah, the kid could shoot. Could shoot. Now,
given the way that Matt seemed to be when he got out of the pool after 12 hours, it really seemed to take its toll on him, and it was questionable whether he could have gone a whole lot longer. Do you think he would have been able to do the 24 hours?
I'm not sure if he would have. I don't know. For a big amount, I don't know. It's tough to say. Like I don't know. Like I don't know the science behind it. But I don't know. What's his name? Sean
McCabe wanted to do it in the ocean. Wanted to do 24 hours in the ocean, and he thought he could do it.
It's still pending. I don't know. He's been posting it online. Some kids from online are betting against him, and he's thinking about going over there and doing it.
Did you guys, when you did the rules for this, say, if he dies but he's still in the water, he loses or something?
For the ocean one, they agreed to have a medic on, not an odd medic, but a medic on site to do his body temperature and make sure he was fine.
Yeah, but like boxing, where they pull him out, he's really going down, and the medic says, you got to come out, and he says, no, I'm not. Who makes the judgment whether he's in serious enough jeopardy?
For him, they were going to do body temperature, and they set an agreement that if his body temperature got down to, I believe it was 86 degrees or something like that, then they would pull him out.
Yeah, but that would be a loss, though, I believe.
Yeah, and he would lose.
That would be a loss, yeah.
No, I would think, if you're going to make these types of prop bets, you wouldn't go in totally not knowing if you could do it. I mean,
apparently
if there's time.
Apparently you don't know the poker world very well.
Apparently I don't know these sick prop bets, but wouldn't you have some sort of value advantage if you knew you could actually do the bet, maybe practice a little bit beforehand?
Yeah, but how are you going to know who's experienced 24 hours in a pool?
You sound like the guy who made a bet that he could eat a real big watermelon. The other guy saying, I don't think he can do it. And he says, I'm sure I can. And he comes back like a half hour later, and he says, yeah, let's bet. I just ate that big watermelon over there, and I proved I could do it.
How are you gonna know who's spent 24 hours in a pool or in an ocean? I don't know.
Come back. I mean, right now preparing for it.
Well,
like
I guess
this online thing.
Yeah, I guess now this guy can research. I don't know. But yeah, it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. But yeah.
Well, Nanad, thank you very, very much for coming on our second Poker Road show. I'm going to get back off of dinner break, and good luck with you. And of course, we will see you in Foxwoods defending your championship. And we will be back here in a moment on the Poker Road. And we are back here on Poker Road Radio. I'm Bart Hansen with Gavin Smith and Barry Greenstein. Thank you very much to Nanad Medic for joining us. We're going to wrap things up. I promise you tomorrow we will get into the Poker Road website. We didn't have time to do that. And have a little story about my escapades and trying to get women on the road that I'll bring up tomorrow as well. And you have a joke, Barry, that you want to tell us.
Well, I don't know if I'll do a joke of the day while I'm here, but, Gavin got me thinking. He was saying I wasn't going to be funny enough for the shows. So I at least want to throw in a gambling joke. Anyway, there's this guy in London. As you know, in London, they can bet on anything. They have betting parlors on the corners. And this guy owed the bookies, the private bookies, a few $100,000. And what they did, instead of threatening to break his legs or anything like that, they said, we have an idea. At the betting parlors, you can bet on the day that people will die. We bet on everything over here. And we got this idea. We were thinking of killing the Pope. But if we kill the Pope and bet on it ahead of time, obviously they're going to trace it to us. But here you're a known straight shooter, and there's no way they could ever trace you to even be in Italy to kill the Pope, so it'd be really hard for them to connect you to it. And if you bet on it, you place so many losing bets. You got to win sometimes. You could win money, and you could bet some with the illegal books, whatever you want to do, and then you'd be able to pay us off. And so the guy felt he had no other choice. He said he'd go along with it. Just tell him the day. So they told him the day the Pope was going to die. And next Wednesday the Pope was shot. And they wait a week or so, and they come to see the guy to collect their money. And they say to the guy, well, Pope died. I assume you made a good score on that. We've just come to collect our money. And he says, well, I'm sorry, I just don't have any. He says, you're kidding. We killed the Pope, and you didn't make a big score on it? He said, well, I was going to bet straight on the Pope dying, and then you wouldn't believe the odds they gave me on a parlay with the Duke of Wellington.
Bum, 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 bum. Not bad. Yeah. Not bad. So, all right, I'm just going to go into this now. So,
the joke itself was pretty funny. I think Barry's delivery sucked. So I think I still
it's like one of those long.
I still really think he's not really funny enough to be on the show.
I stumbled a little bit
because his delivery is kind of brutal, but the joke itself had good enough material to carry him through.
Okay.
Last night was kind of like straight out of a dream for me. Like I went over to there's like a little Irish pub here down the hall, and I was just going to have like a Guinness. And this beautiful little...
What's like a Guinness? Is that like a Newcastle or something? Or?
Yeah, a Guinness, some sort of stout, Beamish or something like that. And this beautiful girl...
Say it like it's a manly thing. That way you can pick up girls. A stout. That sounds like a manly word.
This beautiful girl who happened to work upstairs, little 19-year-old girl, the drinking age is 19, was sitting next to me. And we were, chatting up. And, it was just going great. We took a couple of shots of tequila. and this old Canadian guy came in between and just put the super cock block on me like nobody's business. All he wanted to do was just tell me about the story about how he ran the first tournament that Daniel Negreanu played in 1990 at a snooker hall. And that's how my night went, and he just wanted to be right in between me and this girl, and then the girl just ran off.
He was using the Daniel Negreanu story to pick the girl up? Or
No,
he
just to cock block me.
Cock block.
I don't think that it hit. I mean, cock block, I think, indicates that he did it trying to make you knock out the girl.
I think he
Yeah, I think you're misusing the term.
So I was just screwed then. It was just unfortunate.
Well, I think
situation.
I think what probably happened is when you went to the restroom, he probably said something to the girl, and the girl said, "Look, this jerk is really like bugging the shit out of me. Is there any way? You're a nice older guy from Canada. Is there any way that you can stop this American jerk from hitting on me?" And the guy says, "I'll do what I can. I will look after it." And he did everything he could to make sure that you didn't annoy this woman.
By the
anymore.
way, you bring up Daniel Negreanu. I don't know if you can use that to pick up girls. But Daniel Negreanu's, frankly,
Speaking of the devil, there he is.
There he is. Daniel, hey, I'll bring it up. Daniel's a big name here. In Canada, in the poker room, Daniel's really big. I know you're big in America, Daniel. I see you up there on the stairs. But he's even bigger in Canada. I walk in here, and normally the people see me, and the first question they ask me, is Daniel coming? And there you go. Put it on the headset, Daniel. They say, "Is Daniel with you?" And I say, "Oh, he's up in the room. You want me to go get him for you?" I don't know what they expect. They always expect that Daniel's with me. And
well, you guys both are poker stars.
Daniel even mentioned it to me when I told him the other day. Someone asked me, "Have you seen Daniel?" Well, tell him, Danny. Remember you told me about all the poker players are in the same room or something. That's what people must think, right? We all room together.
No, you were saying that.
Oh, I did. Okay.
You were telling me.
Yeah.
And I was going, yeah.
Oh, that's all you said, yeah?
I said, yeah.
No, you said A. Oh, now we're in Canada. You say A.
I said A, yeah. What are you guys doing? This is like a radio show?
This is like a radio show, but...
This is really cool.
And Danny, you're going to be doing the Amanda Leatherman show tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I was just going to go over there and talk to her about when we're going to do that. Because we might do it tonight. Since last night, Gavin Smith had me out at the bar far too late getting me shots, so I was supposed to play today. I left
before you.
Yeah, but I was supposed to play today, and somehow when I woke up this morning, it was 2 p.m., and apparently this tournament starts at noon. I'll be fine for tomorrow, but my goodness, I had a little bit of the hangover. Yeah, every time I come here, I screw around too much.
So Bart is a little upset with the guy who you introduced me to last night. I can't remember his name. Who ran the first tournament that
Daniel,
you
Mike Sharp.
Mike Sharp.
Yeah, I was having a rap with this girl, and this guy just wanted to come in between me and this girl and tell me about how he organized the first poker tournament.
He was doing
played in a snooker hall.
But I think the girl asked Mike to save her from Bart.
That's very possible.
And that was the way he did it.
That's very possible. I just read a blog today. I don't know if it's true, but apparently I didn't know that your son was smuggling Mexicans into the country, and he was the drug dealer in San Diego. I had no idea.
People should realize, just it's a family thing, we only smuggle Asians.
I know. That's what I was saying. There's no way that could be accurate. There's no way that could be accurate.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel Negreanu will be on Destination Unknown, or Inside the Poker Mind, actually, with Amanda Leatherman. And
you're not doing that to try to hit on Amanda. Bart just brought up a term. I might have to do a cock block on you if you are.
I was going to say that before, but I wasn't sure if it was appropriate on the air.
Yeah,
about that thing.
Yeah, the guy cock blocked me. Yeah.
Right.
Again, we want to thank Nadad Medic, and we will be back tomorrow. I promise
Was it
we'll
Nadad
get into
or Nanand?
Nanad.
You said Nadad. He's going to be very offended.
Nadad Medic.
You don't want to offend Nadad Medic.
Come on, Bert Hansen. Don't be offending people.
Yeah.
And we'll go through the PokerRoad website and have more poker news, and back with these two guys tomorrow for Day 1C at the North American Poker Championship.